This is a topic that I haven't even really talked about with people in real life. There are a few people that I'm close to that know about it, but I've always kept it a bit of a secret. It's something that a lot of people might not understand, and it might sound a bit strange if you haven't gone through something similar. So, probably about 5 years ago, I started to become obsessed with my skin. I started to believe that if I didn't look a certain way, I would be ugly. I believed that if my skin aged, I would be ugly. I would not have anything about me that anyone would like. I didn't feel good in any other area of my life, and I decided that looking after my skin was something that I could control. I could protect my skin from the sun, I could moisturize as much as I wanted, and I could minimize the effects of aging and skin damage in order to preserve my appearance, which I deemed very important to who I was as a person. I became obsessed with the wrinkles under my eyes, the wrinkles around my lips and mouth, the wrinkles on my forehead, between my eyes, and I did everything I could to prevent making them worse. Some things that I do to protect my skin might seem normal and healthy and actually a good idea, and a lot of them are, but I started taking it to such a high level that I actually stopped living my life how I wanted to because I was so concerned about my skin. So before I leave the house, I will put on sunblock, which is fine. But if I'm out for more than 2 hours, I will need to reapply it before I can do anything, because otherwise I will feel that I am burning, that my skin is going to be damaged, and basically that'll ruin everything. So I put a lot of sunblock on my face and neck and hands. If I can, I will keep pretty covered. So if it's not, 30 degrees, I will be wearing a sweatshirt and long pants so that as little skin as possible is exposed. I will not go out without my hat. I have managed to downgrade the size of my hat. I was wearing a massive hat because it was so big that the sun couldn't even get near my skin. But now I've got a bucket hat that I wear, which is a little bit more comfortable. And of course, sunglasses. I won't go anywhere without my sunglasses. And also, if I can, I'll avoid going out during the day. I will go for walks in the evening, an hour before sunset, because I've sort of decided in my mind that that hour before sunset is okay to go out with no sunblock or skin protection on. But yeah, any time before that is basically skin damage time. And I know that a lot of these things are good to do. It is really important to watch how much you're in the sun and making sure that you're protecting your skin. But it got to the stage with me where I was actually isolating myself and sort of living a very stale, bland life, where I just stayed at home and was almost scared to go out because I knew that every time I left the house I was damaging my skin. I also keep my curtains shut a lot as well, and that is a huge part of it because it means that I'm not even seeing outside when I'm at home. Driving became quite a big issue because I would drive with gloves on. I don't do that now. I've managed to downgrade to just having sunblock on my hands. But yeah, I would have to wear a hat, sometimes a scarf if I didn't have sunblock on my neck. So I'd pretty much wrap up to my lips to protect as much of my skin as possible. I was constantly aware of where the sun was, so if I was driving in the direction of the sun, my anxiety would be huge because I could feel it on my skin. Even if I was wearing layers sometimes, I would still think that it was getting through and burning me. If I see other people, especially younger people, that are out in the sun with no protection on, no sunglasses, no hat, and not a lot of clothing, I feel anxious and upset because they're doing so much damage to their skin, and if only they'd put a little bit of protection on, they could keep themselves safe, not only from aging skin, but skin cancer and things. That's another important part of it as well. I did start to become quite worried about skin cancer. Obviously, I'm very pale, and I started obsessing over little moles that I've had for a long time. If they changed even a little bit, I would get them removed. I've had one removed on my arm here, which made a massive scar. Had one shaved off here, which was quite gross. But luckily, through some therapy and some hard work, I've managed to reframe my mind and understand that the way I was living wasn't helpful to the person I wanted to be. The main thing that I did was exposure therapy. So that's basically starting at something that might be at the bottom of the scale of things that make you nervous, to do with, whatever it is. But for me, it's something like being out in the sun without sun protection on in the afternoon or something. Even the idea of that kind of freaks me out now, but compared to something like being at the beach in the middle of the day in a bikini, not because of my body, but because of the skin being exposed to the sun, that's sort of further up the scale. So yeah, you have to start down the scene and kind of work your way up to those things. And I've still got a long way to go, but I'm trying my best. At the end of February, I'm going to a festival in Christchurch, which is over 2 days. So it kind of runs most of the day into the evening. So I know that I'm going to be out in the sun a lot. And this is something that I really want to do. I'm really excited for it. However, I know that there will be some anxiety about being outside for so long. And just that thought gave me something to work towards. So now I have been pushing myself, exposing myself in sort of different situations in order to make that event less scary. Because if you just throw yourself in the deep end, in a lot of cases, I would imagine it's actually going to make things worse because you're not going to be equipped. You're not going to believe that you can handle it. Anxiety is just sort of an over-exaggeration of danger and an under-exaggeration of your ability to handle it. So if you start to believe that you can actually handle these difficult things and that they're not so scary after all, you can start doing them more. I don't think I'll ever stop protecting my skin, and if you don't protect your skin, you should. But you shouldn't stop living your life or doing things that you enjoy or used to enjoy simply because it means being out in the sun or in any other situation that might make you anxious. I know a lot of people might be able to relate to this in different ways, such as issues with food and this sort of controlling aspect of it that comes from anxiety and the feeling of not being good enough and, all of that. And I've definitely had my issues with food in the past, but I was able to pull myself out of that by just realizing that I was doing something that was dangerous. I was in a cycle that wasn't a good way to live. It wasn't healthy. And I have had to have this realization about my obsession with my skin as well. I think these things that I've struggled with are just, my brain's attempt to keep me safe and protected and in control. And while those things are good, it can, really have an impact on your life. So for the first time in nearly 5 years, I've been able to go out in the sun in a t-shirt with sunblock on, of course, but the fact that I can do that and not completely lose my mind is huge. I decided when I got my new car in October last year that I wasn't going to wear gloves, and I haven't even worn those gloves since. There are definitely still things I'm working on, like having the curtains open, being able to sort of walk around and not worry about where the sun is, trying not to be so obsessive about the UV rating, even though it is important to consider. Just embracing life instead of suffering inside. I would be really interested to hear from anyone if they've had a problem with this sort of thing, specifically with sun or skin or aging or health concerns that are controlling their lives. I've looked online for people that have issues directly related to the sun, and I haven't found a lot, but I do sometimes see people out there with their big hats and wonder if they've gone through something similar to what I have been going through. So yeah, it would be really nice to hear from you if you can relate. And just like any sort of mental illness or that sort of thing, it can seem impossible to heal or improve. But if you're just brave enough to take that first step, you can get help, you can help yourself, and yeah, you can start living again. Yeah, it's so interesting just thinking about the fact that I'm making this video, because I know how it sounds. Some people might think that this sounds crazy, some of the things that I was doing to protect myself. But I've come to terms with it now, and I understand why it became that way, and I'm not ashamed anymore, and I am sort of coming out the other side of it as well, which I think helps make it easier to talk about. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching, and